Here we go.
Welcome everybody to Survive and Advance on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by BetNow.eu to get up to a 50% cashback bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Make sure you click on the banner at the top of the GruelingTruth.com page. Use the promo code TRUTH50. That's TRUTH 50. You also could go straight to BetNow.eu and use the promo code TRUTH50, TRUTH, and I spell that out because Steve Risley is here and he can't spell anything.
Would you just call Bobby and ask him to call me and place a bet? I got money in those accounts. I got an account with those people, and I haven't spent a penny yet betting. I've got money in their account. They've got my money, and but I don't know how to bet. I mean, I'm just not good at it. And where's Bobby been? What's he doing? I know he's having some personal things going on.
Bobby will be back when Bobby can be back, and between now and then, maybe Friday.
All right, then you bet my money.
Monday.
You go bet it, because
I'll bet your money.
You made money.
I'll bet your money. I don't care. It ain't mine. I'll
give you my password.
But
I'll give you my password.
No, you're not going to give me your password. We're going to teach you to be a grown man and actually do things for yourself. And tomorrow, I've already talked to Tia, your wife, and she's going to show you how to do laundry.
I know. I've got 2 loads of laundry in right now. Are you kidding me? I got a load in the washer.
Oh, so she taught you a day early. All right. So I am your co-host, Mike Goodpaster, and of course I'm here with Steve Risley. The show won't be as good as yesterday because Steve's back today after taking these dogs to the beach yesterday. Or the dogs took Steve to the beach yesterday, which is probably much more likely.
They took me to the beach. But I took a surf lesson.
I don't believe it. I mean, I need to see a picture. I need to talk. What I want is this.
I can't. Next time my phone's not waterproof. I've only got an iPhone 8. It's not waterproof.
The next time you take a surf lesson, get the guy's phone number, and we're going to have him on the show.
What I realized is that the proportion of my body and the size of my body and the way my weight's distributed at this point in my life, there's not a surfboard big enough in the world for me.
No, probably not. All right,
we're done.
Let's start off with this. Last night, the Reds and the Pirates looked like the Bengals and the Steelers from a couple of years ago.
Mayor Garnett is a hero. I love this
Garrett
guy. Garrett,
He's the guy that in Vietnam you'd have put him at point because that dude will run in and just start punching. Yasiel Puig, of course, had a lot to do with that. And it stems to the Pittsburgh Pirates basically being little bitches. They have been for years, especially with Clinton Hurdle as the manager. I mean, they get mad because Derek Dietrich hits like a 7,000-foot home run and stands there and watches it. And then they throw the ball behind him. And, I mean, it's basically if you don't want a guy to stand there and admire his million-foot home run, don't let him hit a home run off of you. Quit being a baby about it, which the Pirates always are. And the Pirates won the game, but the Reds had the most entertaining part of the night. Now, let's start off. We talked about Yasiel Puig, and he got in a fight. He's been suspended 3 times
wait,
this year.
Can I say one thing? I watched the video of that last night. Then I watched it again this morning, and what was great, if you listen in the background, did you hear the music they were playing, the Reds?
No.
Because they were playing You've Lost That Loving Feeling.
Oh, they should have played like the music from Rocky or something. But
no, I thought You've Lost That Loving Feeling was tremendous. So before we get into that, is that kind of stuff good for baseball or bad for baseball?
Oh, I think it's awesome.
I think it's good.
You know, if there was a mandatory fight a game, I would watch every baseball game.
Yeah. I thought it was just hilarious to watch all these guys go at each other.
Yeah, a bunch of guys that can't fight.
And how big is Amir? Is he like 6'5"?
Oh, he's tall. He's 6'5", 6'6". He's a big dude. I mean, you don't want to get in a fight with him because he can hit you from 5 feet away from you.
And he hit a lot of people.
Yeah,
Before
I mean,
anybody got
he's
to
not
him,
sure
he took
who
out
he
a few
hit.
Pirates.
He was like the old proverbial Scud missile back in that first Iraq War,
There you
where
go.
basically
Just blow things up.
yeah, basically he was just throwing stuff up, hoping he hit stuff, and he hit a few things it looked like. So now he'll probably be suspended because Major League Baseball don't like to have any fun. But
yeah,
the interesting thing
all right. But
is,
I got one other question for you before we get off this subject. I can ask you. He was accused of throwing at players.
Who was?
Now, where's the line you draw on throwing at players and brushing them back, throwing them, getting them off the plate, not letting them get a good stance? Where is the line drawn there, Mike? And and you're good at this kind of stuff. That's why I asked you.
Well,
the
I
question.
mean, this is the thing. If somebody is crowding the plate, you brush them back. You don't brush them back up above the shoulders. You don't hit him up above the shoulders. The Derek Dietrich thing, I mean, just get his ass out. I mean, he hits another mammoth shot and a bat later and stands there and watches it again. Just get him out. But the thing is this, you got to be able to brush somebody back. You got to keep him guessing. You throw behind a dude's ass, I don't care about that. But the line needs to be drawn when you get up around the shoulders, chest area, because then, bad things can happen. And I don't see anything wrong with if a guy's hit 3 home runs off of you, and that fourth at bat, maybe you peg him in the ass. But the thing is this, you can't go at their head. My son was a pitcher, and if, he didn't like somebody, he would put them on their butt. He didn't want to hit them. But, there's got to be a little bit of intimidation here because you got these steroid freaks up to bat, the steroid freaks pitching, and a lot of things can happen where the ball gets hit real far, and if you give up home runs, you lose the game. So I think the interesting thing here is last night, right before that fight, Yasiel Puig was traded for Trevor Bauer, and Trevor Bauer is the Cleveland Indian pitcher that fired the ball into the center field stands when they took him out of the game. And let's just start off by noting how really strange it is for a team like the Indians pushing for a playoff spot to trade away a frontline pitcher. And this is a team, mind you, that has had a ton of injuries to its starting pitching. The Indians have lost their ace, Corey Kubler, to a broken arm, near ace Carlos Carrasco to cancer. They've seen a couple of their other starters fallen by various injuries. And Trevor Bauer has been basically the only guy who's taken the ball every 5th day, and Cleveland sent him packing. That's not the sort of thing you do when you're contending. Now, I think that Trevor Bauer is known to be a head case, and I think that you didn't see any Indians in the organization front office come to defend him over the weekend when he did that. And I think the Indians saw this as getting rid of a headache for somebody else's headache. And Yasiel Puig, I think, since he's been in Cincinnati, he's a guy that puts on a show. He brings energy. He brings excitement. I think for both of these teams, this trade makes sense. My problem with Puig is this. A lot of Reds fans are all upset because he brings that energy and excitement. But Yasiel Puig is not what we all thought he would become 5 or 6 years ago. He's an above-average defender with some pop who can go on hot streaks, but in the long run, he can be pitched to. And we've seen that this year. I mean, this has been his worst offensive year by OPS so far. Now, he raked it in June. He hit 287, but then he went cold again this month in July. So the Indians are only going to have him for August and September, and however far they go in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. The bet here is August, September, you're going to get 1 or 2 more streaks from Puig that may help them. But overall, Yasiel Puig is a streaky guy. And, I mean, to me, he's a little bit like Jay Bruce, who was a Red for a while, where he'll have a month where he looks like the best player in baseball, and then the rest of the time he's flailing around. Now, with the Cleveland Indians, it's not just Puig they get. They also get Franmil Reyes, and that gives the Indians even more power.
I heard that's the steal the deal.
Reyes is 263 for the year, I think, but he's got 27 home runs. Half of his games are played at Petco Park, though. So when you look at it, this trade, I think the Padres may have done well, but you're not going to know it for a few years because Taylor Trammell was one of the best players in the Reds farm system. They got him. Now the Reds' end of this trade is weird. I think Bauer is a big improvement for the rotation, but he's moving to a homer-happy park and will be facing much tougher divisional opponents this year, the rest of this year, than he did in the AL Central. B, he's a free agent after the 2020 season. If the Reds are going to try to gear up and go for it in 2020, this is a great deal. I suppose that could happen. But in the event that they are not in a playoff race this time next year, the best they could do is flip Bauer at the deadline, in which he'll bring back far less than what they gave up in Taylor Trammell. So I think the Reds are always interesting. And if you squint, you can almost see them making a big jump next year. But that's only if you squint. The odds favor them having, in the long run, traded a good prospect for a marginal one. And, they get about a year of Trevor Bauer. This kind of thing won't break them, but I don't really see why they wouldn't have been better served simply doing nothing and not involving themselves in this deal. So I think in the end, the risk here is Trevor Bauer's out of here for a lot less than Taylor Trammell in the middle of next year. But Reds fans that are upset because they gave up Puig, Puig's an entertaining guy. He's a good guy to have in the clubhouse. At least he has been with the Reds. But overall, I think this trade is kind of a push. But in the end, if the Reds are going to make a proverbial push next year and are seriously trying to win, I think this is a good deal because Trevor Bauer is a solid number 2 or 3 starter.
All right, so Cincinnati's 48 and 56 right now. Are they even a playoff team?
Yeah, they're still in it.
They're still in it, really?
Everybody in the National
League. You got the Cardinals at 57 and 49.
Yeah, so how many games out are they? They're,
8 games
7?
out.
No,
right?
they're not 7.
As of what I'm looking at right now, they're 8 games out.
7.5. They were 6.5 going into yesterday, so that should have put them at 7.5.
Well, I just pulled it up on ESPN.
So this is the thing.
Which
the way I look at it is
a
this.
genius thing.
If you're in single digits out at the start of August, you have a chance. Because basically if you make up 1 game a week for 8 weeks,
right,
you're back in it. And we've seen multiple teams, when it was the Colorado Rockies a few years ago, we've seen multiple teams make a run. Right now at 8 games back, you're at the point where a 6 or 7 game winning streak, all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 back with a shot maybe. So I think right now there's an outside chance that they could be a playoff team. But when you put Trevor Bauer in a rotation that actually is decent right now, you add a few more pieces next year and you got a team that's a contender next year. And then this trade makes sense. So I think for the Reds, the big difference here is this. Yasiel Puig is going to be a free agent after this year, and it's going to be hard for them to keep him. Trevor Bauer, they're going to have next year. So I think you go with the guy that you're going to have next year that can be in your starting rotation and be one of your top pitchers and go out there every 5th day over a guy that you're only going to have for a couple more months and you're 8 games out of first.
All right, and I'm sure we're going to hear from our friend Lucas Weiss here in a second because I'm sure he's listening. Can anybody beat the Dodgers this year? They're 70 and 39. Jimmy Christmas.
Well,
they're cleaning everybody's clock. And then you got the Yankees, and the Yankees are 67 and 39. Are these the 2 dominant teams in MLB this year?
It doesn't matter if you're dominant in the regular season. There's a difference between being a really good regular season team and being a good playoff team. So you've still got teams out there that can beat them because you've got teams that have really good starting pitching too. And as baseball, you get a couple hot pitchers. We saw this. We've seen it in, over time. 1973, the Mets were a 500 team, make the playoffs. They played the Big Red Machine, who'd won like 98 games that year. But the Mets had Seaver and Kuzman. Best of 5 series, they won. I think when you look at this, the Yankees, the Twins have won 65 games. The Indians have won 62. They're a contender. The Astros are 69 and 39. The Astros record is a game better than the Yankees right now. So if you look in the American League and the Astros, you're rolling out Jason Verlander, guys like that. So, no.
Yeah.
All I know is this. Every year the Dodgers make the playoffs, and every year they get beat. And I think a team that's a sleeper here that right now would be a wild card team, you got a sleeper team in the Washington Nationals because their starting pitching is really good. And they've played really well over the last couple months. You got an Atlanta Braves team that's 63 and 45. And then every team, basically, and the Reds are 7.5 out. The Brewers are 2 games back. The Cubs are 1 game back of the Cardinals. The Dodgers, you got the Giants and the Diamondbacks who are still hanging around, 54 wins. And the Giants with Bruce Bochy and the run they've been on over the last month and a half, 2 months to get themselves back in, it's huge. So it's baseball. I mean, 1 hot pitcher, 2 hot pitchers can change everything. So as you look at it, the Dodgers are the best team, but not by as much as people think.
And the Dodgers have been in the World Series last 2 years, haven't they? I mean, I live out here.
And they've lost.
They've lost both times, exactly. Yeah, I get that. But they've been there.
But they've lost. So the thing is this. They've proven – well, my whole point here is this. They've proven they can have great regular seasons and they can get there. What they haven't proven is they can finish it once they get there.
Yeah.
So until you prove that,
I agree.
You know, it's kind of like when the Bengals were in the middle of that 5 or 6 years in a row in the playoffs. Nobody ever doubted they were a good team and couldn't get there. They just doubted whether they could finish and actually win a playoff game, and they couldn't. So since we're going to bring up the NFL, let's go ahead and head into New Orleans star Michael Thomas reportedly became the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history after agreeing to a contract extension with the team on Wednesday. Thomas and the Saints agreed to a 5-year, $100 million contract extension. According to multiple reports, ESPN reports that the deal includes $61 million in guaranteed money, the most in history for a non-quarterback. Thomas is entering his 4th year of his rookie contract and had failed to report to camp in hopes of landing a new deal. So I think here that risk was definitely worth the reward, unlike Le'Veon.
2 questions. One, don't you think you and I both are 1/10 as good as Thomas?
No.
So we can't go ask for $6.1 million guaranteed.
Well, Steve, you're already making $3.5 million a week on this show, so I don't even know why you're making that. So.
Okay, now what does this do for Ezekiel Elliott? Now, does this strengthen his camp, or
no? Because this is the thing. I mean, Michael Thomas is more important to the Saints. He's the number 1 receiver with Drew Brees. Last year, he led the league with 125 receptions. He recorded over 1,400 receiving yards.
They throw the ball 50 times a game. I mean, that's not really. I mean, that's not
Steve, what do the Cowboys do? They run the ball 40 or 50 times a game.
Right.
The production is more.
Elliott has been the leading rusher in the NFL for the last 2 years, hasn't he?
But he doesn't have 1,400 receiving yards, and he's not rolling. Right now, if Michael Thomas comes off the Saints, who's the number 1 receiver? I mean, you could win without a running back. I mean, you know that the first team to win a Super Bowl.
You and Jerry Jones think that. I don't think
because it's true. It's not me and Jerry Jones that think that. It's true. Who was the best running back in football last year?
I don't know.
He wasn't on the Patriots. The Patriots won the Super Bowl.
He was on the Rams running back.
Yeah, and they did not win the Super Bowl. And he was injured.
Right.
And the thing is this.
Right.
The other thing about Michael Thomas is he's not been arrested repeatedly. He's not, been in trouble repeatedly. Ezekiel Elliott has caused this on himself. If Ezekiel Elliott would have never been in trouble, he'd have got the money he wanted, I believe. I really think that. Because right now, why would you risk guaranteed money on a guy that might be suspended for half the season? I mean, Ezekiel Elliott yesterday gets sued again by somebody. I mean, so Ezekiel Elliott's problem is he's his own worst enemy. Michael Thomas is a good dude. He's 24 years old. You've got Drew Brees, a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're going to get production from him no matter what. With Ezekiel Elliott, maybe not, because maybe he'll be suspended for 4 games before the season's over. Maybe he'll be suspended the rest of the year. Hell, maybe he'll end up in jail arrested. That's not that far-fetched with Ezekiel Elliott.
But you're Jerry Jones. You own the Dallas Cowboys, which is one of the 3 most valued franchises. I think the Yankees, Manchester United, and the Cowboys are the three most valued franchises in sports. Am I kind of close on that?
Yeah, I would think Yankees, Dodgers, Lakers, Man U, Cowboys.
Yeah, and so he's not going to spend the money to keep Ezekiel Elliott in his camp. And Ezekiel Elliott's not going to get a better – he can't?
He can't. I mean, what's going to happen here is this. They're going to have to re-sign Dak Prescott. They're going to have to give him a boatload of money. If they give a boatload of money to those two guys, it goes back to what your Colts did 10, 15 years ago, where they locked up their triplets, which was Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning, and Marvin Harrison. And then they never could go out and get the defensive help they needed, which is why you had a team.
They had Dwight Freeney. They had some good
No, they didn't. They had Dwight Freeney after that. But, I mean, the prime of the Indianapolis Colts was probably 2002 through 2008. And they didn't have much. And Freeney wasn't there his whole career either because they couldn't afford to pay him. And I'm telling you this, if you have to make a choice between paying the quarterback of a playoff team or the running back, you're going to pay the quarterback every time. You can find another running back. I can tell you this. I believe, and I truly believe this, I believe Mike Weber, who was drafted from Ohio State, could go out there and run for 1,000 yards this year without a problem for the Cowboys.
Okay.
Now, I don't think there is anybody else on the Cowboys roster that can step in and play like Dak Prescott. And once again,
you think Prescott's that good of a quarterback? Really? I've kind of been disappointed in him.
Why? You don't like guys that win?
Well, what does he want?
What has he won? They've been in the playoffs. Okay. He's only been in the league 3 years, right?
They spend more money than God. They should be in the playoffs every year.
No, they don't. I mean, there's a salary cap in the NFL. You can only spend so much money. This isn't the NBA and Major League Baseball. I mean, if you want to get down to this and you want to look at what Dak Prescott's got, Dak Prescott to me is a top 10 to 15 quarterback. Now, the problem is this. After you get past guys like Andy Dalton and Dak Prescott, there is a huge drop-off. And to be able to fill that in is tough. Last year, Dak, 22 touchdowns, 8 picks, completed 68% of his passes, almost 4,000 yards. For his career, this is the thing that stands out to me about Dak. For his career, he's 32-16 with a team with a shitty owner and a mediocre head coach. I mean, and if you look at him, his touchdown to interception ratio is almost 3-1, Steve. I mean, 67 touchdowns, 25 picks. He's completed 66% of his passes, and he's taken them to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. Now, you could say they won a playoff game last year. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys hadn't won a playoff game in forever until Dak Prescott got there. Did Tony Romo win a playoff game? And Tony Romo was considered better than Dak Prescott. All I know is this. Dak Prescott gives you a chance to win. You know, it's just like with the Bengals. Andy Dalton playing gives you a chance to win. People rip on Prescott and Dalton all the time. But it doesn't change the fact that last year, when Andy Dalton got hurt, the Bengals were 6-5. He got hurt. They ended up 6-10.
Yeah, and you know, and I think the world of Andy Dalton. And you know, I'm a Colts fan, and I know you're a Bengals fan, and because our proximity of where we lived or who we root for, I think Andy Dalton, if I would love to see him play for probably a better team of players. And I'm not knocking the Bengals. Please, I'm not knocking the Bengals.
No, it's just it was the injury.
We've got a Bengals fan.
I still think in 2015 the Bengals were the best team, and then he got hurt.
Got put in a shit situation.
No, he wasn't. He was put in a good situation until the last 3 years. I mean, the problem was 2015 they were 10-2. He gets hurt, and it turns into 11-5. Yeah. And that's once again that's the thing here. Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton are quarterbacks that are good enough. If you put the players around them, you can win. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, probably half the starters in the NFL, you can't say that about. You know, you can't take Blaine Gabbert and put the right guys around him, and he's going to win. He's just not very good. You know? I mean, it's just the way it is.
you and I had a conversation off air, I think a couple of days ago or last night or yesterday about Andrew Luck. That you don't think he's in his prime yet. Here's a guy that you think is 2 or 3 years
it's very
away
possible
from being a great quarterback.
No, I think it's very possible we've already seen his prime.
Really?
Because of injuries, yes.
Explain that.
I just don't think that there's any way to know that he's going to ever come back and be what he was 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, so far,
he's allegedly got the best receiving core. He's got the best receiving core in the NFL right now. Allegedly.
But if he doesn't
according to somebody.
But if he doesn't have the arm strength that he once had, he's still going to be a great quarterback. But if he can't throw the ball down the field as well.
Brady can't throw the ball down the field anymore.
But there's
he throws
a difference.
Under everything.
There's a difference. Tom Brady never got by on his arm being great. Tom Brady got by on being smarter than everybody else, being able to read a defense better than anybody else.
Okay, wait a minute. Brady went to Michigan. Luck went to Stanford.
Yeah.
I think Stanford's a little better school.
I think that if you think where you go to school has anything to do with whether you can read an NFL defense or not, you're nuts. I think Andrew Luck's smart as shit. I'm just saying he ain't Tom Brady.
No, there is no other Tom Brady. I mean, he's the GOAT. I mean, he is the GOAT. No. You got to give him that credit.
The only person you can
injuries
is Joe Montana.
Injuries. AJ Green.
I don't
going
care.
To surgery.
It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Doesn't matter. Andrew Luck. I mean, they're being very coy about how bad he's hurt. I follow the Colts daily. I get all the tweets and emails and everything from Colts, everything in the world, from all the Indianapolis newspapers. I live in Los Angeles, but the Colts are my team. I think his injury is probably more serious than they're leading everybody to believe on.
Either that or it's not.
How does training camp, how much effort should they put into training camp? I mean, shouldn't these guys just be conditioned all year long?
They are conditioned all year long.
Okay, so why do you now get into this where how do guys get hurt so easily when there's no contact right now, I believe?
Well, I think I saw a stat. I saw a stat the other day where most training camp injuries happen in the first 7 to 10 days. Now,
yeah.
I think that guys are conditioned. I don't know. I think maybe she goes so far out of the way to keep everybody safe that they end up getting hurt.
Everybody's in a sick way that makes sense. No, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
I mean, sense. Because I think we see more early training camp injuries than we ever saw. Also, I want to bring up a programming note. Randy Cross, the Randy Cross podcast will debut Monday, August the 19th. And it looks like that we will be running that show here on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. So right now, the AJ Green thing, I don't care about.
Wait, am I not part of the Randy Cross show? I don't get to talk to Randy Cross?
No, why would we? You got to talk to Randy Cross once. Remember, Randy made fun of you.
I know.
I like Randy.
I love Randy. Are you kidding me? He's a 49er. He's one of the greatest football players of all time.
Oh, come on now. Me? If Randy's listening, Randy is just blushing.
Well, he is. I mean, I follow him on Twitter. I follow him on Instagram. I follow him on...
So that makes you one of the greatest players of all time?
He played for one of the greatest teams of all time, which makes him a great player.
I think they may have been the greatest team of all time. Yeah. If not, they're in the top 2 or 3. All right, let's go ahead since we talked about that. Let's go to Gil Brandt. And we both loved the movie North Dallas 40. We even had somebody, Jeff Severson, who was in the movie, who also played for the Washington Redskins. But Gil Brandt, for 29 years, he goes into the Hall of Fame Saturday night, whenever they've got the Hall of Fame induction. He was the Cowboys' personal guru, working along with Coach Tom Landry, General Manager Tex Schramm. And the organization grew from a winless expansion franchise in the first year of 1960 into being America's team. Brandt played a vital role in bringing 9 Hall of Famers to the Cowboys, as well as 15 of the 19 players currently in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Those players contributed to 2 Super Bowls, 13 divisional titles, and a record 20 consecutive winning seasons. The thing that stood out to me about Gil Brandt would be how he would take players and switch their positions. Another guy who was really good at this was Paul Brown, because Paul Brown had one of the best defensive backfields, corner tandems, in NFL history in the early 70s with Ken Riley and Lamar Parrish. What a lot of people don't know is Ken Riley and Lamar Parrish never played cornerback until they got to the NFL, because Paul Brown converted them from being option college quarterbacks into being corners. And, I mean, the Cowboys, they drafted basketball players. You saw Rayfield Wright, who was a basketball player, become a Hall of Famer. Cornell Green became a Pro Bowler. These were guys that didn't even play football. They were basketball players. And
I'll say this.
I'm getting a call from Halifax.
Halifax? Oh, that's probably
Nova Scotia. Also, he took guys
that's our
such
buddy.
as Ed Too Tall Jones, who was from Tennessee State, a small college. They drafted Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes was a dude that I don't think ever played football. They drafted him in the 7th round in 1964. The other one that people don't really talk about is Heisman Trophy winner Roger Staubach, who they took 3 rounds in the 10th round after Bob Hayes. And the thing about it was they knew going in Staubach had to fulfill a 4-year commitment to the Navy. And that came, yeah. And, I mean, also in the 2nd round of that draft, they take future Hall of Famer Mel Renfro. But with Staubach, they waited 4 years for him. A lot of people thought they were nuts, and they had Dandy Don Meredith at quarterback then. So you would think, why would you take that risk? And, and also, I didn't realize you said this. Lucas says he doesn't live in Halifax. He lives in Toronto, moron. But
I don't know Canada. All I know is they have gravel roads in Canada. So, Lucas, if you're listening,
they got gravel roads in Indiana, and you live there. So I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, but I never went to those gravel roads.
The other thing
who
about
came first?
Mike,
who came first? Landry or Gil Brandt? Who came first? And I got a story because who came first? Was Landry there before Gil Brandt, or was
I
Gil
think
Brandt
all three of them came that first year.
Came at the same time.
Yeah. What's your story?
So they all came at the same time, and they built it. They built the Cowboys, and that's why they're the most valued franchise in sports. I mean, those are the guys that did that. But Gil Brandt was a very good friend of Bob Knight's, and Coach Brandt, we would call him Coach Brandt, would come to practices at IU occasionally when he was up on some hunting trip with Coach Knight or something like that, or whatever reason he would come up. And he's the most eloquent man you'll ever want to meet. He was soft-spoken, very open-minded, very genuine, and always looked at things in a positive way. And I think that's the reason why the Cowboys had success in the period of time that they had. It wasn't negativity whenever Gil Brandt – and we dealt with a lot of negativity with Coach Knight. You know that. But with Gil Brandt and Knight was smart enough to know that, to say, get a guy like Gil Brandt up here to talk to us, and kind of change the tenure of the aura that we're creating on the team right now. And it was really good. So it was an honor and privilege to get to listen to him, to get to talk to him, and it's a great honor for him, and you're thrilled to death for him.
Actually, it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, he was the first person in the front office of an NFL team to hire an IBM statistician. They had a computer.
Yeah.
They paid 50
North
college
Dallas 40.
coaches $100 a piece to come up with the qualities that make a football player. You couldn't pay a college coach $100 to do anything right now. The Cowboys scouting.
It's basically the premise of the movie North Dallas 40, isn't it? Isn't it basically the premise?
Yeah, it was
of North
based
Dallas 40?
Peter Gent. I think Peter Gent.
Yeah, Gent wrote the book based on the Dallas Cowboys of that era.
Yeah, because he played for him for a couple of years. But the Cowboys scouting reports gave number grades to character, quickness, agility, balanced competitiveness, aggressiveness, mental alertness, strength, and explosion in speed. That added number grades to traits specific to each position. And the thing that was impressive about this is other teams were not enamored with this. And one of those was Vince Lombardi. And I guess Lombardi thought that Gil Brandt was nuts for wanting to pick Mel Renfro in the second round. And Renfro, after he has a great first year, Lombardi, this story goes, walks up and says, "Hey, Gil, I wouldn't mind coming in with you on that computer thing you got." And Brandt looks at him and says, "Well, Vince, the startup fee is $3 million. And Lombardi looked at it and said, "Well, I guess I'm not that interested." Another pick that was great by him was in 1977. The Cowboys made a trade with Seattle Seahawks to get the number 2 overall pick. Now, you had Red Hickey, who was Dallas's top scout, and he was a hell of a football coach. But he wanted to pick Ricky Bell, the great runner out of USC, and Brandt wanted to take Tony Dorsett. They took Tony Dorsett, and Tony Dorsett ended up to be, for my money, the greatest running back in Dallas Cowboy history. I think he was better than Emmitt Smith. I think Tony Dorsett is one of the most underrated running backs that ever lived. I think that he should be in anybody's top 5 to top 10. I think he really gets undersold because people forget. I mean, after the Cowboys won Super Bowl VI, they were constantly losing to the Vikings or the Rams. They lost the Super Bowl to the Cowboys in 1976. And the difference was they got Tony Dorsett. And in 1977, as soon as Dorsett became a starter partway through the season, that Cowboys team just destroyed everybody because I think they ended up 12-2. And I think Tony Dorsett was a huge part of that. And I think he's one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game. And Dorsett, I think, was elected to a Hall in 1994.
Who was the quarterback? Because when they lost Staubach, they kind of went through.
No, they were
Clint
still
Longley.
good. They went to Danny White. Danny White was
Danny
a guy.
White, who was not a Danny. I mean, not a great. I mean,
Danny White.
Who was the quarterback
when
Dorsett was playing there?
Yeah, Staubach.
I don't know the
White.
answer to that question.
You had Gary
Was it Danny White?
Hogeboom. I think Hogeboom for a little while. They had a plethora
So they were
of guys
going
in
through
the
yeoman
mid-80s.
quarterbacks, basically.
Well, you still had
at that point in time until they got Aikman.
Wait a second.
Did Aikman play with? Did Aikman play with Dorsett?
No, because Aikman, I think Dorsett's last year was like 85 or 86. 85, they went to the playoffs. Danny White, I think, was the quarterback on that team still. I think he had some injury issues. In 1984, they went 8-8, but they lost the last game, a Monday night game, 28-21 to Miami, which knocked them out of the playoffs. So really, Staubach retired after 1979. Because 1979, Staubach's last game was they played the Los Angeles Rams. That was a Rams team that went 9-7 in 1979, but they upset the Cowboys in Dallas. I think it was like 23-19, and Staubach retired after the 79 season. Danny White came in as the quarterback in 80. In 1980, they beat the Rams in the wild card game. They made it to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Eagles. In 81 with White, they made it to the NFC Championship game and lost the great 28-27 Dwight Clark catch game to the 49ers. 1982, they made it back to the NFC Championship game with Danny White. They lost to the Redskins. The story there is Danny White gets knocked out early in the game. Gary Hogeboom has to come in, and they lose. 1983, the Rams beat the Cowboys in Dallas in the wild card game. Then in 1984, the Cowboys lost to the Rams in the divisional playoff. That was the game where Eric Dickerson set a NFL playoff game rushing record. He ran for like 230 yards. I think he scored all 4 touchdowns as they shut out the Cowboys 28-0. And then in 86, I think White was still there. And then Dorsett.
No, he had a career. Yeah, he had a career with that team. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, Dorsett. And this is the thing. Danny White was a great punter. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl punter a couple times when Staubach was there. And when you get to 1986, I think the Broncos traded for Tony Dorsett. And then Danny White left. And, of course, you get a couple really atrocious years. 1988, the Cowboys were terrible. Tom Landry ends up leaving. He gets replaced by Jimmy Johnson when Jerry Jones comes in as the owner. We all know that story and how that played out. But, yeah, Gil Brandt lived through all of that. Tom Landry, and Tex Schramm built what was called America's team. And I'm pretty sure that either Gil Brandt or Tex Schramm are the ones that actually coined the phrase in like the early to mid 70s, which has made that take off. But
yeah, well, like I said, I've gotten the privilege to speak with Gil Brandt multiple times. Went back in '78 to '81. You know, I haven't spoken to him since I left Indiana, obviously. Although we may try and get him on the show. We'll see if he'll come on. I'll put an email out to the IU people and to him and see if we can get him on. That would be an incredible get for us.
Yeah, that would be great. Plus, I mean, you got to figure
I'll try that.
You probably never wore him out with three-way text between you, him, and Lucas, so he should be all right.
Lucas, I got 4 texts. I got 4 texts on my email right now. They're all from Lucas.
Because he doesn't live in Halifax. Jeez.
I know.
All right.
I don't know where Halifax is. It's Canada, isn't it? Isn't Halifax in Canada?
Halifax is in
Christ,
Canada.
it's a big country.
Real quick, we're going to take a
It's
15-second commercial break while Risley talks to himself to listen to our sponsor, Bet Now, and then we'll be back with our final news of the day. We will be back right after this.
Join BetNow.eu, courtesy of the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Just use the promo code TRUTH50. That's promo code TRUTH50.
All right, guys, we're back on Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Mike Goodpaster along with Steve Risley. Our final story for the day, Steve, is the passing of Nick Bonacante. And Nick Bonacante, of course, is probably best known as one of the defensive linebackers for the Miami Dolphins that went undefeated in 1972. He was a 13th-round draft pick out of Notre Dame. He played in his home state for the Boston Patriots in 1962, I think, through 67. Played in 5 straight AFL All-Star games. Was traded to the Dolphins in 1969, about the same time Don Shula arrived on the scene. But I think the big story here is how he died. And once again, the onset of dementia, likely CTE, which can't be confirmed while a person is alive. But he was convinced that CTE had taken his life away, and he pledged his brain to science. The sad thing about this is what football did to this family. His son Mark is a quadriplegic who has been confined to a wheelchair for years, since I think it was in the mid or late 80s. He suffered a spinal cord injury while playing for the Citadel. Nick then became the co-founder of the Miami Center to Cure Paralysis after his son's injury, and the group has raised millions of dollars in research. And they had a deeply personal HBO documentary about the Bonacantes, about Nick and his struggles with even the simplest daily task. And years ago, Bonacante wouldn't blame football for his son's condition. But he came to realize what football had done to both of them. And he said, I'm positive of that. Football caused this. We're both, in a way, paralyzed. My son physically, myself mentally, and it gets worse every day. And the thing about this is the Bonacantes are a family that was basically made because of football. And then it was basically all taken away because of the game that made the lives they had. And the way Mark struggled after his incident at the Citadel, and the way his father stepped up to battle for his son. I mean, Nick Bonacante was a true hero of this game. And he's a Hall of Fame linebacker. I remember watching him on HBO's Inside the NFL back in the day. I think he was on there with Lynn Dawson for over 20 years.
Yeah, can I interject? I mean, he was creator of the no-name defense, wasn't he? I mean, he was the creator of the no-name defense.
No.
He was the leader of that, wasn't he?
He was a player on the no. He led it because he was the main linebacker. But yeah, the no-name defense is the no-name defense. If you knew his name, he couldn't recreate it there, Steve, because it's no name.
Yeah. Well, but you got to learn it after a while. I mean, you know, the no-name defense doesn't stay no-named for a long time. When they play, they go 16-0 in the NFL.
Most people know some of the
last
names.
Team to go undefeated in the NFL. So
they're the only team to go undefeated in the NFL. And the NFL's been playing for, about 100 years? Only team to go undefeated. You've had, I think, a Bears or Giants team back in the early 30s that was undefeated and lost a championship game. You had the Patriots team, of course, that went undefeated and lost a championship game. And then there was the old AAFL that the Cleveland Browns were in, where the Browns did go undefeated in that, but it wasn't the NFL. So, yeah, my whole point is anybody that has not watched the HBO documentary about Nick Bonaconte, and it's about his son also, should watch it. And, you know, the CTE, there are things that can help that now. And that will segue us into Friday's show, where we will have Mike Hollis, former Jacksonville Jaguar Pro Bowl kicker, who is going to be on probably with Leon Searcy, former Pro Bowl offensive lineman for that Jaguars team, to talk about whether medical marijuana and CBD should be legal in the NFL. They both work for a company called Canaway Medical Marijuana right now. So they will both be on the show, hopefully both. I got to talk to Leon later today. But Mike will definitely be on to talk about that. And Mike also, I think, runs the Pro Form Kicking Academy where he teaches kickers. But that should be a really interesting show, Steve, because I know me and you both have used CBD products. And
I use it daily.
They work
it
really
every day.
well. And we know that you like to buy your sons bongs for Christmas.
It's legal in California. What am I supposed to do?
Well, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of things that are legal that you probably don't want your kids to do. Do you buy him a case of beer and a bong for his 21st birthday and take him to a strip club?
He doesn't drink, so you get him something that makes him happy. And he goes out by the pool every night and smokes his
I
bong.
know. We've heard this story
Gets
before.
My
Stop,
dog
Steve.
high. I know. My dogs come in happy. They lay down and go to sleep. I'm happy because then I get to watch Young and the Restless and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Maybe you need to start smoking it so you won't watch the Young and the Restless. Maybe you can sit there and
I've never smoked.
Cheetos.
I've never taken a puff of anything in my life. I don't smoke. I've never taken a puff.
I
would
would make a homophobic joke there, but I'm not going to.
Oh, good golly.
All right, so the show started to go off the rails, and we're right around the 50-minute mark, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I got to do a NASCAR show.
Tonight at 9
o'clock. I got to talk about something important. I got to talk about NASCAR.
Yeah, NASCAR. I'm going to talk about NASCAR. You got to have Joey Chestnut on the NASCAR show, so to be interesting, you have
we're
going to
get Joey Chestnut.
Something. Yeah,
we'll get Joey Chestnut.
You haven't gotten anybody yet. I get everybody. Mike Hollis won't talk to you.
I got Landon Turner. Give me a break.
You got one guy in 5 years. Jeez. All right, guys.
we haven't known each other for 5 years.
Remember, thank God, I'd probably be dead by now. But 8 o'clock.
Lucas just said NASCAR isn't important. Lucas,
because it's not.
You're an idiot.
Well, this is the thing. Me and Lucas talked yesterday. And we've decided that we need to do a show. Hey, Lucas, for what you just texted, and his name is Steve, and he's 6'8", and he's hairy. All right, so he's like one of those from the 80s, Lucas. That's an inside joke between me, Lucas, and Steve. But at 9 o'clock tonight, me, Brian Schmidt, and CFL legend Robert Drummond will be up with the CFL Weekly Pickup Show at 11 o'clock tonight. Inside Boxing Daily's back with me and Jeremiah Pricer. Me and Steve will be back at 1 o'clock tomorrow to talk a little NBA and about whether NBA players should be skipping World Championships or whatever it's called. And then on Friday, of course, Mike Hollis will be by, former Jacksonville Jaguar Pro Bowl kicker, to discuss medical marijuana, CBD, and whether it should be allowed in the NFL. All right, we're going to wrap the show up, and when Steve tries to interrupt me, I'm going to interrupt.
One thing.
What?
I want to get on a go-kart track with that good friend. I'll kill him.
No, you won't.
I will put him in the wall so fast he won't know what hit him, and he'll get hit, and he'll fall out of his golf cart or go-kart, and he'll go, oh, my God, this is not what I thought it was. So it happened to me. I got killed. Not really killed. I'm still talking to you. So, but I got T-boned one time in a go-kart on a track,
Wow.
It hurt so hard. I broke the steering wheel. They gave me the steering wheel because we broke it. I flew out of the cart, and they've got me. I'm laying on the track, and I've got other drivers coming at me like I'm going to die. Unfortunately, I was a little bit thinner then and could roll out of the way real quick.
And that's why Steve Risley thinks NASCAR is a sport, because one time he got in a wreck on a go-kart track. All right, I hate to tell you this, but the last time I was in a go-kart track, I was 12 years old, and I won. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I want to thank everybody for listening and remind you can hear everything that we do here at the Grueling Truth Sports Network on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find the Grueling Truth. Make sure you go to betnow.eu. Use the promo code TRUTH50. So, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.